now, even if you have staff who are not technically skilled on tools like Excel sheet.
Welcome to this week's episode of AI Because with just a few of my buddies. So we are coming to you from the UK, from Dallas, from California, and from two different parts of Canada. And I just love hanging out with these guys. So today we're going to hit some topics on what's happening, just some updates or what we're hearing around AI, Apple Intelligence, around Meta with Llama 3.2. We're going to do a demo with Microsoft Copilot. So I'm super excited about that. So Manoj is going to walk us through some of the functionality that exists. So I get to learn along with you. And then some use cases. And so like the format that we have is we're going to step in and have conversations. So I look forward to it. And Manoj, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Michelle. As Michelle mentioned, I'm going to talk about Microsoft Copilot today. It is a good choice in terms of AI for organizations who are already using Microsoft applications like Office 365. And today I'll share some of the demonstrations, show you some practical examples of how your organizations can utilize Microsoft Copilot. So let me start by the two options or two versions of Microsoft Copilot which are available, because this is for Microsoft, and as usual, Microsoft loves to make things complicated, but we're here to simplify things for you. So there are two versions offered by Microsoft Copilot. One is called the Microsoft Copilot Pro, which is targeted towards individuals, and it is available for about $20 per user per month. And the second Copilot is called Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is what Microsoft is targeting towards businesses and organizations. And that one is available for about $30 per user per month. And that is what I'm going to talk about today, give you some practical use cases and examples of how your team can use Microsoft 365 Copilot.
I'm excited.
Okay, super. Okay, so in Microsoft 365 Copilot, these are the different usage interfaces from where you can use Microsoft Copilot. So I'm going to demonstrate the web mode and the work mode. That's where the web mode is where you can utilize Microsoft Copilot internet knowledge. And work mode is where it knows about the internet, but it also knows about your own organization. So I'll expand a little bit more when I show you the demonstration examples later. So those are the two modes which are available when you're using the Copilot interface. Then Microsoft Copilot is also available from various Microsoft applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Edge, Outlook, Teams, and many, many more. There's a very long list because Microsoft has hundreds of applications, and they are in the process of integrating Copilot in as many of those applications as possible. So later in this session, I'll show you examples of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint of how you can use Copilot in those three widely used applications in small and medium size organizations. In addition to that, there is also an option. So we won't cover this today. So these are slightly advanced topics. So we'll touch on them maybe in another future session, where you can also create specific Copilots for your organization. So like your HR team can create an HR Copilot. So all the employees, instead of asking a question to some team member in the HR department, they can ask the question to the Copilot, and the Copilot can respond and answer to those questions. So similarly, the marketing team can create a marketing Copilot, the legal team can create a legal Copilot. So different teams can create different Copilots, which are then trained on the context of that use case, and then they respond to questions related to the topics around those Copilot. And another way in which you can provide access to Copilot is by just integrating it into your different applications. So if you use a CRM application, if you use a sales application, risk management application, then you can also integrate Copilot where AI is in the backend and users can just use Copilot by running or calling, asking questions from those applications itself. So they don't need to then go separately into a Copilot interface.
So Manoj, just to clarify, right, that you're talking all this stuff. So I'm listening as someone on the outside because I'm learning from you too. And when we talk about HR and marketing and then you can embed them in different things. My brain went to, this is in work mode, and we're actually drawing on the information that the organization already has within like SharePoints or other information. Is that a right assumption?
So in the work mode, it will have your access to all the files you have on SharePoint on the different teams folder, but it will still be a generic Copilot, which Microsoft is providing. But what you can do with, like, let's say, an HR Copilot is you can attach all your HR policies into that Copilot. So when it's answering the question, it can answer the question not based on its internet knowledge, but only the documents or the policies which have been attached to that particular Copilot. One more example of that is customer complaints. So you can give a chatbot on your website if customers wanted to complain, and then a chatbot can handle the customer complaints. And then in that chatbot, you can provide detailed instructions on how the chatbot should respond to customers when they're complaining about products or website issues or issues, with the bank account funds, for example. So that's an example of creating a specific Copilot for just handling the customer complaints, where it won't be used for anything else. It'll just be used by the customers complaining, and then
or if people want to tell you, great job. I mean, you could have a process for that too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let's then dive into the detail, because we want to make these sessions very practical, very hands-on. So I actually want to show you all of these examples with real life use cases, and I'm going to take the use case of a small financial services organization based in the US. So a small community bank. So one of the use case I'm going to start off with is that in this Copilot you can see there are these two modes. There is the web mode, which is where it doesn't know anything about your organization. It basically will respond to any questions you ask with the internet knowledge the model has. And then you have the work mode, where Copilot knows about the internet knowledge, but it also knows about your organization, because this work mode is connected to the SharePoint websites, the Teams websites you have. So when you ask questions, it'll also respond to those questions based on the files you have on the various Microsoft sites in your organization. Nice. With the web mode, where I have this example where, let's say, if I was in the compliance team of the bank, and this is where one of the regulator has given a very long speech about some changes they have done to a regulatory document around compliance. And now I don't have time to read this whole speech. So what I want to do is I want to use Copilot to see if it can summarize, okay, what did the regulator say about in this particular speech? So for that, let me go to Microsoft Copilot, and what I will do is I will just copy the prompt I have written. And in this case, I'll just say, summarize this speech by a key regulator, and then I just give a link to that website. And because this is a web mode, it can go to that link, read the content of that web page, and it'll summarize that speech for you. So you can then just read the summary, and you don't have to read the entire speech.
So I don't have to go and paste the entire speech into ChatGPT or anything else. I'm just going to put the URL to the speech.
Yes, that is correct. Cool. Yeah, you don't have to put the whole text. Yeah, you just put the hyperlink, and Copilot knows how to go and read content from the different websites. And this is where then it just summarizes that in this case, the principal deputy assistant, Nicole, has delivered remarks, on September 23rd. And these were some of the key points she covered in her speech. So now you can just read this particular summary. And then you can also say, highlight any key topics she shared in the speech. So was there anything specific she highlighted or focused on in the speech? And then Copilot can also go and do that summary to see if she will emphasize any certain points in that particular speech. So this is a good way of using Microsoft Copilot, where if you have long documents or PDF files from regulators, then you can try to understand those files, those website content, the news article content, using the web mode.
I
Then
have a question. So when I hear that, my brain went to, is there a way to, and maybe it's in work mode, to say, okay, this is what the speech was. Please identify where we need to make updates to our policies or how this could impact us.
That's a
you
good
could
question.
ask, yeah, you could ask that question. So it'll require a little bit more detailed prompting
Yeah,
to get to
yeah,
that. Yeah. But in this case, yeah, this speech was very high level, so it won't have the
yeah.
specifics in this particular one. But yeah, that is
Okay, cool.
absolutely
I like that.
possible. Yeah. That if there was more detailed guidance, then yeah, you could analyze and then use Copilot to see, okay, which policy should be updated, which processes should be updated because the regulator is changing something for one of the rules.
Cool. Thank you.
Then let me use another example of brainstorming. So if you want to use Copilot as a brainstorming assistant, then I have this one case where, let's say, I was responsible for this account opening and onboarding process in the bank, and I want Copilot to identify some of the risks I need to manage because this is a very important process used by the customers. I want to make sure that customers, when they come to open the accounts, the process, the systems, they're always running, that there is no barrier or obstacle when customers are trying to open the account, and that process should go as smoothly as possible. So in order to do that, I need to identify what are the different risks I need to manage around this process, and then of course put some mitigation in place to ensure that those risks don't materialize when customers are trying to open their bank accounts with us. So in this case, I have the prompt where I'm asking it to imagine that it's an expert in identifying risks for business process. I'm asking for a table of 5 operational risks to start with. And then I'm asking for risks in a specific category. So I'm saying, okay, give me where the business process may fail, give me some technology related risks, and give me some external theft and fraud related risk. And then I provide the title of that process, the description of that process, and the various activities we perform as part of that process, because this is where you need to provide the context in order for Copilot to give you good feedback. So I'm giving it enough context around this business process so it understands my business process in a little bit more detail. And then I'm just asking for a table in this case where I'm asking for risk title, risk description. I'm asking for 2 examples of how this risk can happen in other banks. And then I'm asking it to categorize each of those risks by those 3 risk categories. So if I submit this, then this is where I'm using Copilot as an expert or a consultant, where I'm asking for advice on a particular topic. So in this case, it gives me a table of the different risks. For each risk, it gives me the description of how that risk may materialize. It gives me a couple of examples like I asked for, and it gives me a category for each of the risk. So I started with 5 risks, but now I can say, give me another 5 risks. So I can now continue this brainstorming where I use Copilot as my brainstorming assistant. So I don't have to start from scratch. That is one of the benefits, is that with these generative AI tools, you never start from scratch. You always have them available from a brainstorming perspective. Yeah. So that sort of is where, yeah, you can continue to brainstorm with it and identify 15, 20, 25 risks, and then make sure that you utilize this knowledge to ensure that these risks don't materialize, so that your customers, whenever they come to open the accounts, they are always able to have a smooth and a pleasant experience in terms of opening their accounts. And then I also want to show the image functionality. So here, if I create a prompt and I say, okay, create an HD quality landscape image reflecting the context of the last risk. So in this case, this last risk is failure to secure initial deposit transaction. So I'm saying that, okay, if I want to generate an image around that, I can also use Copilot to generate an image. So it can give a text-based answer, but it can also generate images. And I'm just saying that, okay, this is the color scheme I want to use, blue, green, and yellow. So if I submit that, then this is where a slightly different model called DALL-E 3 gets invoked in the backend. You don't need to worry about that, because from the front-end perspective, you'll just get an image when you ask for an image, and it'll generate 4 images, and then if you were creating a presentation on these risks for your senior management team, and you wanted to create images for some of the important risks for that presentation, then that's where you can use this particular functionality. Okay. So in this case, yeah, it's given you the different images. You can click on an image to see a little bit more. And there's a lot of functionality here to also keep enhancing. So if you want to keep revising the images, then there is also capabilities which we're not covering in the session today.
That's
So that
cool.
is what
It feels like it takes chat GPT, where chat will just generate an image, right, one time. And then this feels like a mid-journey kind of feel to it, to where it's doing 4 of those. So that's kind of cool.
It's giving you 4 images, and then you include the branding colors of your organization. So then it'll create the images which align with the branding of your organization. So that is what the web mode is. So it's your brainstorming, it's your expert, it's your consultant, and then whatever information is available on the internet, it's providing all the responses based on the knowledge it has from its internet database. Then let's switch to the work mode. So work mode is where now Microsoft Copilot knows about your organization also. So in the web mode, it doesn't know anything about your organization, but in work mode, it knows about your organization. And as a user, whatever SharePoint websites I have access to, those SharePoints are also available in the background. So if I ask a question to say that, okay, I'm looking for all the policies related to information security topics, because I may have lots of policies and I don't know where to go and look for those policies, then I can use Copilot that, okay, you find me all the policies we have in our organization related to information security. And this is where it'll scan through all the different SharePoint and Teams website where I have access to. So it's respecting the security of every user, that whichever user is doing the query, it'll only find the files which that user is allowed to see. And this is where you can see it went and found the different policies. And then it also gives me a hyperlink to each of those policies. And what you can do here is that this group information security policy is what I'm looking for. So I can hover on that and I say, okay, I want to now drill down into this policy a little bit more. So I can click on ask about this, where it now includes a reference to that document, because that document is stored somewhere on some SharePoint website. But now I have a reference to that. And now I can ask some questions about the content of that document. So I can say, okay, what are the main sections in this policy? So I want to know that without opening that policy. So I can then submit that query. It'll go and read that policy document, and it'll just give me the list of all the different sections and what sort of content, a summary of each section over here. So I'm able to do a query on a document which is somewhere on the SharePoint website, and even without opening the document, I'm able to ask questions related to the content of that document.
So if my brain went to managing, right, all the policies you may have, and so without getting a separate system and doing all this stuff, you could go out and set up a query to where, please pull all the policies in such and such. So let's say I'm HR, where the last update happened outside of a year ago, right? So let's say that we have a policy that says I have to look and lay eyes on an update every year, every 2 years.
Absolutely.
It could pull all those things that are due for updates, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, based on the date time stamp. Yeah, I'll say that, okay, I know somewhere I have a spreadsheet with customer complaints. So I don't know where it is on the SharePoint. So I'll just say, okay, go and find me the spreadsheet with details of my customer complaints. So it'll then go and scan the different repositories of documents, and it'll find me the different documents. So in this case, I have 3 spreadsheets. I've created a spreadsheet for the demo today. So what I'll do here is I'll just say, okay, I want to now do some analysis on these customer complaints. I'll click on ask about this, and now a reference to that spreadsheet gets included here. And then I can say that, okay, help me, analyze what sort of complaints are we getting from customers. So I'm just saying here, this file contains list of recent customer complaints, perform a detailed analysis on the complaints and respond to my questions I will ask in subsequent prompt. So I'm just asking it to read all the customer complaints and answer the questions later. And I'm just saying, okay, let me know when you're ready. So if I submit this, it will go and then analyze all the customer complaint details. And now it's saying, okay, it's ready to answer any questions I have. So I can now go and ask questions about saying, okay, what are the most common type of complaints we are getting? And without opening that spreadsheet, if I have opened that spreadsheet, I don't know where that spreadsheet is on the SharePoint website, but it is able to then go and analyze the different types of complaints. And it is showing what are the common type of complaints we're getting. So it seems issues with online banking platform is where we're getting a lot of complaints, debit card issues, loan application.
I like this because it's working within your own ecosystem.
Yes, yeah, and because it knows about your organization. It's not just like ChatGPT, where ChatGPT doesn't know anything about your organization. It's giving everything from a internet knowledge perspective. And then what you can do is you can then also go and ask to say, okay, give me table of customers who've complained about this mobile app. So, I want to see, okay, what are these complaints we're getting from mobile app issues? And then I'm saying, okay, give me the date when we received the complaint, the name of the customer, and what channel did they submit their complaint from. So if I submit that, then it can also get me individual records which meet a certain criteria. So in this case, it'll just get me the date, the time when we got the complaint, the name of the customers, and what were the different channels through which they submitted the complaint.
Sweet.
You know what'd be cool too, Manoj, is that if you're doing, organizations are a lot of working on efficiency, process improvement, if you will, improvement work, is that if a source of an indicator of, hey, here's an area we need to work on is, from complaints or from feedback, if you will, we could go and say, hey, we started this improvement effort, this experiment, if you will, to improve something. And I can go back then and ask Copilot, give me a list of all the complaints around X topic, right, that we were focused on working on from this date forward. So I'm going to look and say, hey, we put this improvement in place. I want to know if it's working. The team needs to know if it's working. I don't care about all the complaints now prior to that, but I care about tracking, is it working? So I love this because a lot of times we have to go digging as an improvement team to find out whether or not what we're doing is making a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, this can be very powerful. Yeah, this work mode can be very powerful because you're combining that AI capability with all the files you have. And you don't have to do anything with that data. It just has access to that information. And there's so much analysis, summarization, insights you can find by just asking questions.
And what's also good about it is that it's only showing you what you are authorized to see.
Yes, it is always respecting that security. So it'll only show you files where you have access.
I have a question on storage. I mean, we have all our internal documents in our SharePoint, but when we're going back and forth between work and web, where's this new information? Where's that?
In terms of the output of these prompts, Greg, so this is where there is a chat history. So it maintains a history of all the chats you've done. So of course, that information is not going and getting updated like in a file somewhere, but Copilot maintains a chat history where you can go back to a chat and you said, okay, I asked this question last week. I want to find, okay, what was the answer? So I can use that answer again. I don't have to ask that question again. So there is a chat history in the work mode, and there is also a chat history in the web mode. So this is where you also see the chat history. But nothing is happening with the output of that information because it's just for your consumption. And if you want to take that output so that you want to be able to save that permanently, then you'll have to copy and paste that into some Word document and save it somewhere. So it doesn't automatically save that output anywhere. And that's where you can see one of the differences that in the web mode, I had created different queries. So when I come back here, it starts from scratch. And then I can go back to my last chat by just clicking here. And then it'll open all the questions and answers I asked in the last session we did. Okay, so fast tracking that, then this is the main Copilot interface where if you buy Office 365 Copilot license, then you get access to web mode and work mode. But the power of Copilot is that it's also available from all these Office apps. That is what makes it really powerful. So this is where I want to show an example in Microsoft Word where a lot of organizations are at the moment writing their new generative AI usage policies. So you can use Copilot to draft new documents, on various topics. So for the example today, I'll show how you can use it to draft a new policy from scratch. So in Copilot, you have this Copilot, which is available in Word, where I can click on copy and paste. And here I'm asking it to be an expert in writing a policy. And I'm saying, okay, help me write the generative AI usage policy for RWS group. And then I'm giving it various instructions that I want the policy to be professional tone, easy to understand. So I won't go into all of those details, but we do organize training courses for organizations on how to use Microsoft Copilot, which is where we provide training on how do you write these prompts to get good quality output. So if that is something you're interested in, I'll share the details of where you can connect with us to have a discussion about training your team members on Microsoft Copilot. But for now, I will submit this prompt. And what this is doing is it's giving Copilot the instruction that I'm going to give name of the different chapters I want to write in the policy. So it is saying that, yeah, it is ready for my instructions. So I will then provide the detail of the first chapter I want. So I want the first chapter to be around the introduction of this policy. And then I'm saying, okay, what is the guidance, the purpose, the scope, objectives? So I say, these are the topics I wanted to cover. So what it'll do is it'll take those topics and write those in the policy format.
Sweet.
Where it writes all those details around the policy. And typically you can reuse, 50-60% of this content. Yeah, so it won't write 100% policy where you'll just take it as is, but it'll at least give you a good starting point, that you never start from scratch with Microsoft Copilot. It'll always give you a good starting point. So there,
Yeah.
I can click on keep it here, and then I can go and say, okay, that my second chapter, I click here, and then it'll go and write the content for the second chapter of that policy.
This is like a game changer.
Absolutely.
It really is huge. It really is huge, but it's also important to remember that the human starts the process and the human should end the process. It's not like we're turning everything over completely unleashed, to AI, because we are serving as the guide throughout, and if we don't like something, then we can give the AI feedback and it will adjust.
Well, it's
Absolutely.
a foundation. It's a starting point that
Oh,
I think
it's-
a lot
yeah,
of
it's-
times
It's
people
amazing.
don't have. And if you look at small to medium-sized businesses, what happens, and I've experienced this with people, is they typically work for a larger organization for a long period of time. They go out on their own. They've seen all this content, and not necessarily generative AI, but other policies. And yet to start from scratch when you go into your own business is daunting.
Yes.
So I think this is a game changer in the fact that you have a starting place. And chat will give you that too with OpenAI, a starting point. But I love about the work mode that you're in is they're going to base it based on what you've already got. So there's some sort of brand voice or organizational voice that sits in the background.
Yeah. And Steve, that is a very important point, because that's why Microsoft calls this as a co-pilot, that, it's humans, it's assisting the humans, that it's supposed to help the humans who are working with it, and then give you a 60-70% start. And what you can also do here,
Right.
so if I just give the details of the third chapter, then it'll create a version of that chapter, but I'll just show you that you can then create like 2 or 3 versions of that. So if you don't like the first version it comes out with, you can say regenerate. And then it'll write another version of that chapter. And then you can get like 3 or 4 versions written, and then you can pick the best one from those versions. So here you can see there are 2 versions. So if I want to see, okay, what was version 1, I can just click on that arrow and it'll show me what was the output it gave me in version 1. I can review that. And if it is version 2, I can review that output. And then whichever one I like, I click keep it. And that is what gets included into my document.
Very powerful.
So you can sort of brainstorm 2 or 3 times. It can give you 2 or 3 versions, and you pick the best from those 2 or 3 versions. Okay, so that is what the Word functionalities, and of course, there is a lot more you can do with Word, but today was about just showing the possibilities. Next, let me go into PowerPoint. So this is another functionality where when I've done training with the customers, they just love this functionality, especially stakeholders who are creating a lot of presentations all the time. So in this case, if I click on create a presentation about in the Copilot, it'll then ask me about the topic on which I want to create the presentation. Okay, it's still opening here. Okay, so it gives me this interface where I can type the topics. In this case, I'm saying create a presentation about the importance of maintaining a high quality risk culture within a US financial services firm. The content should target senior executives and their role in creating and communicating risk culture. So this is where it now knows a lot about how to create a risk culture in a financial services organization from its knowledge base. And now it's going to convert that into a PowerPoint deck. So if I submit this, it will now go and pick up all that knowledge, create an outline of the different topics it thinks are important. And then you can then remove some of these topics if you don't want some of those topics. But if you're happy with the topics, then you can just click on generate slide. And this is where it'll then go and generate 10, 15 slides based on that particular topic, and it'll all be in Microsoft PowerPoint directly. So you're not doing it in ChatGPT or some other tool and then having to copy and paste it. So this is where now the output in terms of the slides have been generated. So what Microsoft Copilot does is, in this case, it has created 23 slides on the risk culture topic. So it creates the cover slide, and you can see it also creates appropriate images on the slides. This is the title slide, and then it also generates speaker notes for each of the slides. So it's generated the agenda, and then it's organized the slides by the different sections. So this section is about understanding risk culture, where it goes through the different definitions. And then it's creating, like I said, the images. What is the role of senior executives in risk culture? And it creates this content. So this can be amazing in terms of giving you a good starting point, that it can give you a good 60-70% starting point if you're creating lots of presentations on topics. And in Copilot, there is also the functionality where you can convert a existing document. So if you have a PDF file you on a particular topic, then you can also take that PDF file or Word document or Excel file and convert the content of that into a PowerPoint presentation. So that's where you'll use this create a presentation from file feature, where you'll just reference it to a file, and then whatever is the content of that file, it'll generate the PowerPoint slides based on that particular content. Okay, so that is using Copilot in Microsoft PowerPoint. And the last example I want to show is how do we use Microsoft Copilot in Excel. So in this case, I have the customer complaints we saw earlier, where we have the various columns related to these customer complaints. And if I click on Home, this is where I have access to Copilot feature, and then Copilot becomes available on the right-hand side here. So in this case, I can then do some more analysis and work with my data using Copilot. So I'll just show some examples. So in this case, I'm saying this file contains list of customer complaints. Can you analyze these and provide me with 5 key insights based on the data? So tell me something, I should know, where I don't want to read all the data in that file, where it can go and read the data and give me 5 key insights based on that data. Okay, so it's saying, yeah, it's analyzed the data, and then in this case, it's saying, okay, there are 2 insights only it's provided. So I said only key insights, so it thinks only these 2 are the key ones. So the highest number of complaints were recorded on 30th September, and the majority, okay, a majority of the complaints were received in September 2024. So that sort of is where, yeah, it's like the same information it's giving me.
Well,
Again,
but it's nuanced, right? Because it's like the highest number of complaints in one day happened here.
Right.
But
and
then
in a month.
overall, September had a problem because it could
Yeah.
be
in
May of
terms of the month.
2023 was the
Yeah.
highest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that it's not
Yeah.
30th September. It's talking about the whole month. Yes.
But
Yeah,
it
and-
feels like it almost feels like a Power BI kind of functionality too, because Power BI can take the underlying data and pull some insights into stuff too. This is cool on a
Yeah.
thing that you don't have to be coding in Power BI.
Right. Well, that's one good thing about it is that it also it takes things, a number of tasks that used to be more technical and hard to perform, and turns them into more of a conversation. And that's a big deal also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me also then ask you, what are the most common type of complaints here? So it can then do the analysis on the type of complaints. And then it tells me
Nice.
that, okay, most are related to the online banking platform, 13 complaints, debit card decline, 12 complaints. And then it gives me this analysis. The most type of complaints are about the online banking platform being slow. So it can then analyze,
Wow.
apply the language model to my content. Yeah. So let me then just show 2 more examples here. So if I just show something around a pivot table, where I'm saying, okay, create a pivot table showing the count of complaints by the different channels from where we are getting those complaints, then it can create a pivot table based on the data. And then you can add this pivot table to a new sheet. So I can click on add a new sheet, and then it'll add this sheet around the pivot table here. And then you can ask it to create a bar chart with that data. So it can also then go and create bar chart, pie charts based on your data.
So you know what you're going to have? You're going to have a bunch of people that maybe part of their job is to be able to have functionality in doing this, and they weren't able to do it. And so they had needs improvement on their performance evals.
Yeah.
But
And
now all of a sudden, they're going to be strong performers in an area because they just, not everyone can wrap their brain around on thinking this way. And I think this is awesome.
Yeah. And this is where it'll always ask permissions. In this case, you want to include this chart, you can click on add to a new sheet, and then it'll add the chart and the pivot table on that sheet. So you can do a lot of analysis on the data and create those charts. And the last example I want to show is creating a new column. So in this case, we have the date on which we got the complaint and date on which we closed the complaint. So if I want to see how long it is taking to close these complaints, then I can also ask it to create a new column called resolution days. So you can also add new columns where it'll just store the difference between the closure date and the complaint date. So if I submit, it'll then work out the formula and create the new column for us.
So turnaround time basically from open to close?
Yes. Yeah. So from when we got the complaint and until we resolve that complaint.
Yeah, that's
so
great. Resolution days. That's a very good. Yes.
If I click on insert column, then it'll add this particular column, and then you can go and quickly find all the complaints, which took more than certain number of days to be resolved.
Can you click in that column H, Manoj?
Yeah.
Click in like H1 or H4 or whatever, H2, not H1. Yeah. Okay.
you wanna
So
see the
that's what I was
function.
wondering. The frickin' formula's there. So
Yes. Oh,
that's
yeah.
awesome, because what it can do is you can teach people what the formulas are to be able to do these functions and not just do it.
Yes.
I love that, because it was copy and pasting values, but it's not. It's copy and pasting the formulas to be able to get to that value, which is awesome.
You should also, Manoj, can you tell it to adopt the same format, right? It's obviously has a different format and it lost the table format when it inserted that column. You should be able to instruct it to carry over the table format too.
Yeah. So this Excel is still, I think this is the weakest feature. So sometimes, it'll do that. Sometimes it won't do that.
Okay.
Because when I was here preparing for this session, I saw that sometimes it was doing it. So Excel is like at the weakest part. That's where Microsoft is still improving.
That's that's a really important point, because we're still in the early days of AI, and I think it's fairly safe to say that that as we go forward, things are only going to get better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now, once you have the resolution days, and then you can go and see that, okay, there was this one complaint which took about 20 days, for us to resolve. Another complaint took about 18 days, and you can then drill down and see if, there is any issue we need to solve to make sure that it doesn't take that long, to solve customer complaint. But at least, a lot of the complaints are getting solved on the same day, which is good news. So that's a quick flavor of how you can use Microsoft Copilot, starting with the web and the work interface. And then we looked at the Word example of how you can write content directly into Word. We looked at example of creating content in PowerPoint format. And then we also looked at example of how, if you have a lot of data in Excel, you can use Copilot to do analysis on that particular content. If this is something which can add value and enhance the productivity of your team members, and you want to train your team members on Microsoft Copilot, then you can contact us on training@AIcloudstrategist.com, and then we can help you create a custom course for your organizations based on the key use cases and deliver that training. And these training can be sort of 2-hour format if you want to do an introductory training, but they can also be 8 to 15 hours if you want to cover a lot of use cases into those training. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover, Michelle, today. So should we go through some of the
love it.
news updates?
I like it. I really
Thank
like
you,
it, because
thank
now even if you have staff who are not technically skilled on tools like Excel sheet, this can be leveraged.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many possibilities, especially with the integration of Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It just makes it so much more powerful to use the tool.
Well, I love just the Excel functionality, because there's so many people, and I'm sure people can relate to it, that just get freaked out over Excel. It's like, oh my God. And then you have other people that love it, right? So I'm a love it category, and I've dealt with so many people that don't love it. So I love that it really significantly closes that gap.
Absolutely. Okay, what do we have next?
The other stuff we want to talk about is what's happening. Just a quick update so people are aware of it. Apple Intelligence. I know Meta is looking at Llama 3.2. And so I think it's one of those things of, if we can just touch on what it is at a very high level, because I know we haven't touched it and played with it. But I think it'd be cool just to let people know what's happening. So who's taking that?
Well, they're just starting out more with their vision side. That's coming out quickly, and they're going from text to image inputs, and the image qualities are really nice. I mean, they've done a pretty amazing job. They've added their long content and really increase that up. I think it's like 128,000 tokens or something that they're dealing with. So they're coming out strong. and making it multilingual. I think that's kind of a real special touch to kind of get more of a global feel for this. And something that they've jumped right on is the fine tuning capability. So it's they really are becoming more interactive and doing that at a very fast pace. So I think it's a promising technology. We'll have to wait and see how they take care of it.
We were talking Llama
Okay.
3.2, right?
Thank
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Apple?
The highlight of Apple Intelligence is this: deep OS integration. I think that the two key things to know about Apple Intelligence, I mean, it has generative capabilities. It can write, it can summarize, it can create images. But what differentiates it from the likes of Androids is that it's deeply embedded in the OS, so it's available throughout, regardless of what application you're in. And then the second thing is the focus on privacy. So they have tried to make as much of the processing that occurs on device as opposed to in cloud. So those are the two highlights. There's a lot more specifics, but those are the two highlights.
It's interesting. There's so much similarity in what you just said and what I heard with what Manoj was demonstrating in Copilot. Is there's a lot of focus. So if you look at embedding through all the applications, that's the mindset that Microsoft has taken within Copilot to say, we have this functionality and it exists here and here and here, regardless of what you're using within our platform. I think it's cool stuff. Yeah. The other thing, so thank you guys, and more to come on that as more rolls out and we will touch it and feel it. The other thing I want to, that I think it's important for us to touch on is use cases and application, because it's not just about I have to buy technology or I have to have a coder or someone who's really versed in this, well versed in this, but there's stuff literally, and I call it at our doorstep. And so part of that is there was an article I ran across written by, and I'll say in the comments who it was, but I didn't make the note. But what hit me is she used Chat GPT as her career coach. She very eloquently addressed, so bye, Steve. Very eloquently addressed what she set out to do. A lot of it was on prompts, and she scored Chat on the different areas. And what her takeaway was is Chat as a tool was a great partner. Chat deepened her thinking and provided clarity around career. So it brought her to action. And when she was specific with Chat, because Chat's a cheerleader for you, right? Like, oh my gosh, great job. It's so good to see you. Wonderful thing. And when she put in there, because she was waffling, if you will, on different career choices and paths to go, and said, Chat, I need you to hold me accountable. I need you to question me on this stuff. There was a shift in the questions and the feedback and the responses that she got to where Chat was actually going deeper with her. And while Chat at this point is not going to replace a coach and the nuances and all that stuff, I think it's really powerful for people that don't necessarily have access to somebody they can bounce ideas off with, soundboarding, thought partner, whatever that may be. And so I just encourage people that you don't have to have the coding and the expertise, even though we can help you if that's where your gap is. But there are so many ways to tap into the functionality without having that, just in the free version. So I just want to throw that in there. I don't know what you guys have thoughts or comments on that.
Yeah, and I use that all the time, Copilot and ChatGPT as just a brainstorming partner when I'm starting, but also, if I have done some thinking, then I use it for brainstorming to see, okay, is there any gap in my thinking? Okay, is there anything which I have not included and I should include in my thing? Yeah, so it's amazing for something like that you're not then relying on your team members who may be busy when you want to brainstorm, that you can do your first brainstorming with these tools, and they're very, very good.
And or team members that may not have the expertise.
Yeah.
So, we may have come together as a group, and the group, depending on what you're in, may have similar experience. A lot of startups, similar experience. And so you can reach out and at least get other perspectives. that we couldn't have possibly lived to get the experience. So I do appreciate that. And it's taken so much stress off of me being able to do stuff. Because it's like I've done proposals for leadership development days. Chat is better at creative writing than I am. So I can upload the key elements and all objectives and everything else, and chat will put it together. Obviously, we have conversations back and forth, but in such a way that people look and go, oh my gosh, this sounds like a really fun day. Well, it is a fun day, but I don't know that I would have described it in words the same way that chat did. So it's just cool stuff.
Absolutely.
Michael, Greg, any last comments or thoughts on use cases or anything? Because I know, Michael, you just got done from traveling around the world for 3 weeks.
I was just at a conference in Milan, Italy, and it was the MLS Forum, the global MLS Forum, and many of the founding leaders for different MLSs across different countries are now implementing AI to be the back end with their MLS listing to handle the data and integration. So I see that starting to happen more in different platforms, and it was in every panel, AI was always involved. It was really, even the one that said talked about one panel didn't mention much about AI. They actually still mentioned it and said we are the only panel who didn't talk about AI, but they didn't realize they were still talking about AI.
And what is MLS? You use that acronym?
The MLS. So that's the real estate listings, the multi-real estate listing across different countries, like the one we have in the States or in Canada. But these are the systems across different countries.
Manoj or Greg, any last comment?
Nothing specific, but I mean, AI is touching every industry and at every business level. It's moving very quickly, but I mean, we're still early. Okay, we talked about there are things that are improving constantly, things that there's new things coming out every week. So there's no one that's too late. I mean, that's not where we're at. All the early adopters that come in the next 6 months are really going to be rewarded for their efforts in increasing their education. So I really think that's important that everybody looks at it in that way and not be overwhelmed.
Yeah. The thing that I would add is I was able to, over this last weekend, listen to a summit that had Elon Musk and what's going on with Elon Musk and everything that's happening in that space. And I'm super excited about his robot. Super excited. So I'm hoping, what is the name of the robot, Michael?
Optimax.
Optimax?
Optimax or Optimus?
Optimus. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Manoj. Because it's just if it rolls out the price point he's talking about, I mean, the accessibility for most of us humans is pretty high. Yeah. So it's super exciting. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. And then it frees us up to do stuff that fills our cup up, that we have passion around and everything else. So I'm really excited about that. Any last comments?
No, I think, thank you for joining the session today. And then for the audience, also, if there are specific use cases, specific tools you want to cover, then please mention them in the comments, and then we'll review those and try to cover those in the future episodes.
Learning from you guys. So please join us again, like, share, subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications. We'll give you information in the description so that you know how to reach out to us, and we're here to help. And so thank you for your time.
Great.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
We got the spark in the circuits now. As dummies listen, we'll show you how. A new wave rising, it's clear and loud. AI's the future, let's make you proud. Data and dreams combine in the air. From cloud to code, oh, we're everywhere. Innovation driving, we're breaking ground. With AI tools, let's turn it around. AI because we're powering your moves. Tech that's here for good, bringing all the moods.